They told you democracy works, that elections matter, that your vote shapes the future. But what if the real decisions were made decades ago, in rooms you'll never enter, by people whose names you'll never know? What if everything you've been taught about power is a carefully constructed illusion? Skull and Bones. The name sounds like something from a Gothic novel, but walk through the streets of New Haven, Connecticut, and you'll find it. A windowless marble tomb sitting on the Yale University campus. No signs, no tours, just silence. And every year since 1830-2... 15 new members are tapped, chosen, initiated into something that doesn't officially exist. George H.W. Bush, his son, George W. Bush, John Kerry, William Howard Taft, Henry Luce, founder of Time magazine. These aren't random alumni. They're architects, senators, Supreme Court justices, CIA directors, Treasury secretaries. The roster reads like a shadow government because that's exactly what it is. Inside that tomb, initiates participate in rituals passed down through generations, coffin confessions, psychological breakdowns, loyalty oaths that transcend law, country, even family. They call themselves bonesmen, and when they leave Yale, they carry something with them. Not just a network, a worldview, a blueprint for power that operates above elections, beyond borders, immune to public accountability. But Skull and Bones is just one node, one thread in a tapestry woven over centuries. To understand the control grid, you have to go back, way back, to the moment when the old aristocracies realized something terrifying. Democracy was coming. And if they didn't adapt, they'd lose everything. 1815, Europe is exhausted. Napoleon is defeated. The old monarchies are restored. But the Rothschild family has emerged from the chaos with something unprecedented. Financial power that transcends national borders. While kings argued over territory, the Rothschilds controlled the debt. They financed wars, rebuilt nations, and learned the ultimate lesson. Whoever controls the money supply controls the future. This wasn't theft. It was architecture. They didn't conquer countries. They built the systems those countries depended on: central banks, bond markets, international finance. By the mid-1800s, the Rothschild network spanned Europe. 5 sons, 5 capitals, 1 coordinated vision. And when nationalist movements threatened to disrupt their plans, they simply made nationalism profitable. Wars required loans. Reconstruction required capital. Either way, the family won. But here's what history books won't tell you. The Rothschilds weren't alone. They were the financial hub of a much larger web. British aristocracy, European royalty, industrialists, bankers, all connected through marriage, business, and secret agreements. They met in private, coordinated policy, and slowly, methodically, built institutions that would outlive them. The Council on Foreign Relations, founded in 1921, just after World War I. The Official Story, a think tank promoting foreign policy expertise. The Reality, a filtering mechanism. Every U.S. president since Franklin Roosevelt has either been a CFR member or surrounded by CFR advisors. Every CIA director, every Federal Reserve chairman, every Treasury secretary. The patterns aren't coincidence. Their architecture. The CFR doesn't elect presidents. It cultivates them, identifies talents early, funds their education, places them in strategic positions. And when the time comes, they're ready. Not to serve the people, to serve the system. Because that's what the CFR really is. The American node of a global governance structure that's been building for a century. And then there's named after the hotel in the Netherlands where they first met in 1954. 150 of the most powerful people on earth, prime ministers, CEOs, media moguls, central bankers. They meet once a year. No press, no minutes, no official record. Just 3 days of private discussions about the future of global policy. The attendee list reads like a blueprint for the next decade. In 2008, they discussed financial instability, months before the crash. In 2016, they discussed populism and Brexit, months before the vote. In 2019, they discussed pandemic preparedness, months before COVID-19 coincidence or coordination. Here's what makes Bilderberg different from other elite gatherings. The Chatham House rule: anything said in the meeting can be reported, but never attributed. It creates plausible deniability. Participants can deny making decisions. Media can ignore the meetings entirely. And the public never knows what was actually discussed. It's transparency theater, the illusion of openness, masking, absolute secrecy. But if you really want to see where policy is born, you have to go to the woods. Northern California, 2,700 acres of old-growth redwoods, Bohemian Grove. Every July, the most powerful men in America and its always men gather for 2 weeks of summer camp. Presidents, generals, CEOs, media titans, Supreme Court justices, all wearing name tags, all pretending to be equals. The official motto is "Weaving spiders come not here." It means no business, just relaxation. But that's a lie. The Manhattan Project was planned at Bohemian Grove in 1940. Reagan's presidential campaign was strategized there in 1980. Deals worth trillions are whispered between scotch and cigars. Because that's the real purpose: to build consensus outside public view, to coordinate power before it becomes policy. And every year, they perform the same ritual: the cremation of care, a theatrical ceremony where they burn an effigy representing worry, conscience, and accountability. It's symbolic, a psychological reset, permission to do whatever's necessary without moral burden. And when they return to Washington, to Wow Street, to Silicon Valley, they carry that permission with them. Does this sound like democracy? Or does it sound like something else entirely? A parallel structure, a shadow government, a system where real decisions are made in private, announced in public, and sold as inevitable. Because here's the thing you need to understand. These organizations don't operate in isolation. They're interconnected. The same names appear across all of them. Henry Kissinger attended Bilderberg dozens of times. He was a CFR member, a Trilateral Commission founder. His fingerprints are on every major geopolitical shift since the 1970s. Same with David Rockefeller. Same with Zbigniew Brzezinski. Same with countless others whose influence spans decades, transcends administrations, and operates regardless of which party holds power. This is the control grid, not a single organization, a network, a system of overlapping memberships, shared goals, and coordinated action. And what they've built isn't temporary. It's generational, self-perpetuating, immune to democratic oversight. You want proof. Look at policy continuity. Doesn't matter if Democrats or Republicans win elections, foreign policy stays the same. Military spending increases, surveillance expands, corporate power grows. Why? Because the people crafting those policies aren't elected. They're appointed, selected, cultivated, and they all come from the same institutions. The revolving door between Wall Street and government isn't a bug. It's a feature. Goldman Sachs executives become Treasury secretaries. They deregulate banks. Then they return to Goldman Sachs. Defense contractors become Pentagon officials. They approve weapons contracts. Then they return to defense contractors. This isn't corruption. It's the system working exactly as designed. And the media, they're not watchdogs. They're gatekeepers. Every major news network has executives who've attended. Every major newspaper has board members in the CFR. They don't report on these meetings because they're part of them. They shape the narrative, decide what's news, what's conspiracy theory, what's acceptable discourse. And anything that threatens the system gets labeled extremist, dangerous, unserious. But here's where it gets darker. This isn't just about control. It's about transformation. The goal was never to maintain the old order. It was to build a new one. A post-national system where corporations have more power than countries. Where unelected bodies make decisions for billions. Where sovereignty is obsolete and democracy is ceremonial. If you're feeling something right now, A, knot in your stomach. A sense that everything you believed was built on sand, good. That means you're paying attention. And if you want to see how deep this really goes, hit that subscribe button, because what comes next will change how you see everything. The Trilateral Commission, founded in 1973 by David Rockefeller and Zbigniew, the stated goal: promote cooperation between North America, Europe, and Japan. The real goal: create a unified elite across the developed world, a class of technocrats who see themselves as global citizens first, nationals second. Brzezinski laid it out in his book, Between Two Ages. He wrote, single quotes the nation state as a fundamental unit of man as organized life has ceased to be the principal creative force. Mankind is now in the midst of a new electronic era. He wasn't describing the future, he was prescribing it, and the Trilateral Commission became the vehicle for implementation. Within years, trilateral members dominated key positions. Jimmy Carter wasn't even on the national stage when Brzezinski recruited him. But by 1977, Carter was president. His cabinet, over 24 trilateral members. His national security advisor, Brzezinski himself. This wasn't an administration, it was an installation. And it didn't stop with Carter. The pattern repeated across decades. Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Paul Volcker, Alan Greenspan, Ben Bernanke. The same network, the same institutions, the same vision of centralized global governance dressed up as international cooperation. But why? What's the endgame? Control is part of it, but there's something deeper. These organizations genuinely believe they're saving humanity from itself. They look at democracy and see chaos. They look at nationalism and see war. They look at individual liberty and see inefficiency. So they're building an alternative, a managed system where experts make decisions, where technocracy replaces democracy, where the messy, unpredictable nature of human freedom is optimized away. They call it the rules-based international order. But whose rules, who writes them, who enforces them? Not you, not your elected representatives. International bodies, trade organizations, financial institutions, NGOs funded by billionaires, all operating outside democratic control, all coordinating through the same networks we've been discussing. The World Economic Forum is the most visible face of this agenda, founded by Klaus Schwab in 1971. It's where global elites meet to discuss everything. Climate policy, digital currency, artificial intelligence, pandemic response. And increasingly, they're not just discussing, they're implementing. The Great Reset isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a published agenda. Schwab wrote a book about it. The goal is explicitly stated: to build a new social contract that integrates every aspect of society and economy. That's not reform. That's redesigned from the top down without asking permission. Young global leaders. That's the WEF's recruitment program. They've been running it since 1990, identifying promising politicians, entrepreneurs, and activists, training them, connecting them, and placing them in positions of power. Justin Trudeau graduated from the program. So did Emmanuel Macron, Jacinda Ardern, Gavin Newsom. These aren't random successes. They're cultivated outcomes. And here's what should terrify you, It's working. During COVID-19, countries around the world implemented nearly identical policies. Lockdowns, vaccine passports, digital tracking, censorship of dissent. Was that organic or coordinated? When you realize the same people advising these governments all come from the same networks, the pattern becomes clear. Central bank digital currencies. That's the next phase. Every major economy is developing one. China already has it. Europe is piloting it. The US is exploring it. And what does it enable? Complete financial surveillance. Programmable money, funds that expire if not spent, purchases that can be restricted, accounts that can be frozen without due process. It's not currency. It's control infrastructure. And they're selling it as convenience, as innovation, as protection against crime and tax evasion. But once it's implemented, once cash is obsolete and every transaction flows through a central system, there's no going back. Your financial life becomes transparent. Your behavior becomes manageable. Your freedom becomes conditional. This is what the control grid was always building toward. Not a conspiracy hidden in shadows. An architecture operating in plain sight. Laws written by lobbyists. Policies crafted by think tanks. Narratives shaped by media conglomerates. all coordinated through the same elite networks, all moving toward the same goal: a managed future, a controlled population, a world where power is concentrated, permanent, and unchallengeable. Does this make you angry? Good. Anger means you still have fight left, because here's the truth they don't want you to know. Systems are powerful, but they're not invincible. They depend on your compliance, your belief, your willingness to look away. Every empire in history believed it was permanent. Rome, the British Empire, the Soviet Union, all convinced their systems were inevitable. All wrong, because systems built on deception eventually collapse under the weight of their own contradictions. And this one, it's more fragile than it looks. They need you to believe you're powerless, that resistance is futile, that the game is already over. But if that were true, why would they work so hard to control information? Why the censorship? Why the propaganda? Why the constant effort to shape what you think, what you see, what you're allowed to question? Because they're afraid that if enough people wake up, if enough people start asking questions, if enough people refuse to comply, the whole structure comes down. Not through violence, through withdrawal of consent, through building alternatives, through choosing freedom over convenience, truth over comfort, courage over compliance. The next decade will determine everything. Whether humanity moves toward a centralized, controlled, technocratic future, or breaks free into something messier, more chaotic, but infinitely more human. And that choice, it doesn't belong to them. It belongs to you. So what are you going to do? Keep scrolling, keep consuming, keep pretending this doesn't affect you, or are you going to dig deeper? Question everything. Share what you learn, because that's how this ends. Not with a revolution, with a million small acts of defiance, with people choosing to see, to know, to resist. This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. And if you want to see what happens next, if you want to understand just how deep the control grid really goes, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because the next episode, it's going to blow your mind. We're going inside the Federal Reserve, the most powerful institution you've never been allowed to question. And what you'll discover will change everything you thought you knew about money, power, and who really runs the world. The choice is yours. Stay blind, or open your eyes. Either way, the game continues, but only one path leads to freedom, and time is running out.